In the heart of a quiet suburban neighborhood, a chilling wind whistles through the darkness. Nestled in between rows of identical houses, there lies a home bathed in warm, inviting lights. Within its walls, a couple, John and Mary, are lost in their own little world, wrapped in a blanket of comfort and the flickering glow of a movie playing on the television screen. Their laughter dances around the room, a stark contrast to the creeping shadows outside. The night is young, and they are blissfully unaware of the sinister spectacle that the universe has conspired to unleash upon them. Outside, the wind picks up its pace, howling like a pack of wolves, the trees swaying ominously in its icy grip. The whispers of the wind become louder, more insistent, as if trying to warn the couple about the impending doom. Suddenly, the laughter inside the house dies down. The room plunges into darkness as the power goes out, leaving John and Mary shrouded in an unsettling silence. Their heartbeats become the only sound in the room, each thump echoing the growing dread within them. John, ever the protector, rises from their couch, his face hardened with resolve. He moves toward the fuse box, his steps careful and calculated, every creak of the floorboards seeming louder in the deafening silence. Mary, left alone in the pitch-black living room, clutches her heart, her breath hitching in her throat. The house, their sanctuary, suddenly feels alien and hostile. The darkness around her seems to close in, every shadow morphing into a terrifying specter. Without warning, a crash echoes from the depths of the house, a sound so loud and jarring it seems to shake the very foundations of their home. The sound originating from the basement sends an icy chill down their spines. As John moves to check the fuse box, a sudden crash echoes from the basement. The crash reverberates through the silent house, causing John and Mary's hearts to pound in their chests. Like a symphony of dissonance, the noise disrupts the peaceful veil of the night, turning tranquility into a palpable dread. John, driven by a cocktail of adrenaline and concern, descends into the basement, armed with only the thin beam of his flashlight piercing the darkness. As he steps into the cold, damp room, he discovers signs of forced entry. The window, previously sealed shut, now stands ajar, its lock brutally twisted and mangled. The chilling wind from outside whistles through the open window, carrying with it the harsh reality of their situation. An unsettling feeling washes over him like a wave of icy water, chilling him to his core. He realizes they are not alone in their sanctuary. The safety of their home has been violated, breached by an unwanted guest. Meanwhile, Mary remains upstairs, her heart pounding like a war drum in the silence of the house. The seconds feel like hours as she waits for John's return, her breath hitching in her throat with every creak and groan of the old house. Then, out of the deafening silence, a cold whisper snakes its way into her ear. "Don't scream." The voice is unfamiliar, its tone menacingly calm and unhurried. It's the voice of a predator, confident and in control. In that moment, fear takes hold of Mary, rooting her to the spot. The whisper, a mere 2 words, echoes in her mind, drowning out all other thoughts. Her heart, previously pounding with anticipation, now feels like a block of ice in her chest. She wants to scream, to call out for John, but the icy grip of terror has her voice trapped in her throat. Paralyzed with fear, Mary stands frozen as the intruder's icy grip tightens around her. The silence of the house is now a haunting echo chamber for her terror. Each heartbeat a deafening reminder of the nightmare unfolding within these familiar walls. In the chilling silence, Mary's mind races, her heart pounding like a drum. Like a trapped bird, she's cornered by the intruder, a daunting figure lurking in the shadows. He commands her to call John upstairs, his voice a low growl that sends shivers down her spine, but Mary isn't one to go down without a fight. As she presses the numbers on the house phone, her voice quivers, not from fear, but with a purpose. Each word she utters is carefully chosen, her tone subtly infused with a distress that only John would understand. She's played this game before, a secret language they had created as children, a private code only they knew. It was their secret weapon now. Meanwhile, John upstairs is oblivious to the nightmare unfolding below. Mary's voice echoing through the phone seems normal, but something feels off. The cadence of her speech, the subtle tremor, it's a signal, a distress call. His instincts kick in. He knows something is wrong. And then, there's a voice in the background. It's faint, but unmistakably familiar. It's a ghost from his past, a voice that once echoed in his childhood home, in the midst of innocent laughter and sibling banter. But now it's tainted with a darkness he'd never known. It's Robert, his estranged brother. John's blood turns to ice. The pieces of the puzzle fall into place. The late-night intrusion, the unexplained familiarity, the voice from his past. It all makes sense now. Robert, the brother he hadn't seen in years, the brother with whom he shared his childhood, was the intruder. The world around him spins as he grapples with this revelation. Betrayal, shock, and anger surge within him. He feels a cold chill creeping up his spine, the harsh reality setting in. His own flesh and blood, the brother he once idolized, was now a threat to his family. A cold realization washes over John as he recognizes the voice that once filled his childhood memories, now distorted by malice. John's mind reels, the familiar voice sending chills down his spine. Suddenly the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, the shadows of the past merging with the harsh reality of the present. His brother Robert was the intruder, the brother he had once shared a childhood with, now a stranger with a sinister agenda. John steels himself, his resolve hardening like a diamond under pressure. He knows he must confront Robert, not just for himself, but for Mary, his partner in life and love. The weight of the situation settles heavily on his shoulders, but he is undeterred. The fear in his heart is replaced by a surge of protectiveness, a fierce determination to keep his loved one safe. The confrontation is a dance of words and emotions, a tug-of-war between past and present. Robert's voice echoes through the house, revealing a deep-seated resentment that had festered over the years. The bitterness in his words is a testament to the grudge he's held, a grudge that has driven him to this extreme. As the brothers lock horns, a chaotic struggle ensues. The tension in the air is palpable, the outcome uncertain. Yet in the midst of this turmoil, an opportunity presents itself. Mary, who had been a silent spectator up until now, sees a chance to free herself from her restraints. With every ounce of her strength, she fights against the ropes that bind her, her heart pounding in her chest. With a final, desperate tug, Mary manages to break free. Her relief is short-lived, however, as she stumbles upon an unexpected lifeline. Hidden under the chaos and debris, a forgotten firearm emerges. The cold metal in her hands offers a glimmer of hope, a chance to turn the tide. As Mary breaks free, she stumbles upon the only thing that can end this nightmare, a forgotten firearm. The stage is set for the final showdown, a battle not just for survival, but for a future free from the shadows of the past. With the cold steel in her trembling hands, Mary musters the courage she never knew she had. In the darkened room, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest, she steps forward. The fear that had once consumed her now fuels her determination. There's a man who has turned their sanctuary into a nightmare, a man who has threatened their lives, a man named Robert. Across the room, Robert's eyes widen as he spots the glint of the gun in Mary's hands. He immediately drops his menacing demeanor, replacing it with a guise of sympathy. He pleads, he manipulates, he tries to worm his way into Mary's mind, pulling at threads of past friendship and shared memories. His words slither through the air, trying to coil around Mary's resolve. But Mary is a fortress. She thinks of John, her partner, her love, his bruised face, the pain in his eyes. It stirs something within her, a roaring fire of defiance that drowns out Robert's deceitful whispers. Their bond, their shared dreams, their love story, it overshadows the fear, the uncertainty. It gives her strength. She remembers lazy Sunday mornings, laughter echoing through their small apartment, shared dreams of a future together. She thinks of the life they had planned, the life Robert tried to steal from them. No more. Her grip on the gun tightens. Her fingers, once trembling, now steady. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now burn with resolve. She takes a deep breath, her decision made. The room is plunged into a moment of absolute stillness, a breath held in anticipation. And then, the sound of a gunshot rips through the silence, a declaration of her defiance, her refusal to be a victim. Robert crumples to the floor, the threat finally neutralized. The nightmare at last is over. As the echo of the gunshot fades into the night, the couple is left in the deafening silence, their lives forever changed. The night was as silent as a tomb, with the only sound punctuating the quiet being the occasional hoot of a distant owl. Nestled deep within the heart of the forest, a secluded house sat, its walls echoing the stillness of the night. A soft serenade of the nocturnal creatures was the only soundtrack to this tranquil scene. Alongside this symphony of night, an unsettling score slowly began to rise, its eerie melody intertwined with the growing tension. In this house, tucked away from the world, resided two solitary figures. Meet Jack, an ex-military man, hardened by years of service, and his best friend Eddie, a journalist with a knack for uncovering the truth. These two companions had settled in for what they assumed would be a peaceful evening, seeking refuge from the chaos of the world in their woodland retreat. Little did they know, this was going to be a night they'd never forget. The tranquility of the night was soon shattered by a startling discovery. A cold gust of wind swept through the room as Jack and Eddie found the back door ajar. It was an unsettling sight, the once secure barrier now standing as an open invitation to the unknown. The silence of the night seemed to hold its breath, the quiet too intense, too absolute. Jack, a man whose past was steeped in military service, felt a familiar chill crawl up his spine, his instincts honed by years in the field, kicked into high gear. He moved swiftly yet silently towards the door, his eyes scanning the shadows for signs of intrusion. Every creak of the old wooden floor under his weight seemed to echo through the empty house, a symphony of suspense playing out in the dead of night. Meanwhile, Eddie clutched his phone tightly, his fingers dancing over the screen as he dialed the local sheriff. His voice was a low whisper, barely audible over the pounding of his own heartbeat. He relayed their situation with a sense of urgency, his words tumbling out in a rushed whisper. The silence on the other end of the line felt like a gaping void before the sheriff's gruff voice filled it with a promise of swift action. As they navigated through this eerie tableau, the deep, unsettling voice of our tale's narrator chronicled their every move. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the suspense creeping into every corner of the room. Each moment felt like an eternity, each breath a testament to their mounting fear. The house, once a haven of comfort and familiarity, now felt alien and menacing. Shadows seemed to dance on the walls, each creak and groan of the old structure sounding like a harbinger of doom. The once innocuous everyday objects now cast long, monstrous shadows that seemed to reach out for them. As Eddie ended the call, they heard a chilling sound from upstairs. It was a noise that seemed to freeze the very air around them, a sound that promised that terror was far from over. The night was just beginning, and the true horror was yet to reveal itself. The chilling sound sent a wave of dread washing over Jack and Eddie. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they ascended the staircase, the old wooden steps creaking under their weight. The air grew colder with each step, a chilling contrast to the warm spring night outside. Eddie, the ex-military man, took the lead, his senses heightened from years of training. His eyes darted around the dimly lit hallway, alert to any sign of danger. Jack, though not as experienced, was no less brave. He followed his best friend, his palms sweaty, his breath shallow. The hallway was a gallery of shadows, the moonlight filtering through the grimy windows, casting long, distorted shapes on the weathered wallpaper. The chilling sound they had heard from below was louder here. It was a low, rhythmic hum, like a lullaby from a nightmare. As they moved forward, Jack noticed a thin crack in the wall. It was a door, cleverly disguised to blend with the surrounding wallpaper. He reached out, his hand shaking as he pushed it open. The room was small, claustrophobic, with a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. It flickered sporadically, casting an eerie glow on the room's contents. There was a mattress on the floor, its sheets untidy and recently used. A few personal belongings were scattered around. A worn-out backpack, an empty food can, a half-burnt cigarette. The sight was unsettling. Someone had been living here in this hidden room, in this abandoned house, and from the looks of it, they hadn't been gone long. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, louder than the rhythmic hum that filled the air. He felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he pictured the intruder lurking somewhere in the shadows, watching their every move. He turned around, ready to share his discovery with Eddie, but as he turned, he found himself staring into the eyes of an intruder. A chilling silence fell over the room as Jack locked eyes with the intruder. The air between them crackled with tension, their breaths the only sound in the otherwise silent house. The intruder, a shadowy figure, seemed to be sizing up Jack, who stood his ground, his every muscle coiled like a spring. Jack's past life as a soldier had prepared him for moments like these. His heart pounded in his chest, not with fear but with adrenaline, his senses heightened. He assessed the intruder with a practiced eye, taking in the man's size, the way he held himself, the nervous flicker in his eyes. He was a predator, yes, but Jack was no prey. The intruder made a sudden move, but Jack was ready. His military training kicked in, his movements fluid and precise, but the intruder was quick. Too quick, slipping past Jack's defenses and darting towards the door. Jack lunged, but it was too late. The intruder was gone, swallowed by the shadows outside. Silence descended again, heavier this time. Jack's heart still throbbed with the rush of the confrontation, but there was a new emotion now, mixed in with the adrenaline, curiosity. The intruder had left something behind. A note. Jack picked it up, his fingers brushing against the rough paper. His eyes scanned the hastily scribbled words, the message sending a chill down his spine. There was no signature, no clue to the intruder's identity, only a cryptic message that left Jack with more questions than answers. The note read, "This is just the beginning." A promise, a threat, or perhaps a bit of both. Whatever it was, Jack knew one thing for certain. This was far from over. The night had only just begun and the real horror was yet to come. With the cryptic note in hand, Jack and Eddie were plunged into a nightmarish puzzle. The note, scrawled in what appeared to be a desperate hurry, was a jumble of letters and numbers. It was like trying to decode the ramblings of a madman. The friends, bound by a camaraderie that had seen them through countless trials, now found themselves in a predicament that was far from ordinary. Jack, ever the military man, tried to stay composed. His eyes, however, betrayed a flicker of fear that wasn't present before. His fingers traced the jagged letters on the note, his mind racing to make sense of the nonsensical. Every instinct told him they were running out of time. Eddie, on the other hand, was visibly shaken. His usual jovial demeanor replaced with a grim seriousness that made Jack's heart clench. He watched as Eddie paced the room, wringing his hands nervously. The silence in the room was deafening, each tick of the clock echoing like a hammer against their sanity. The atmosphere was electric, charged with dread. It felt as though the walls were closing in, the shadows playing tricks on their eyes. The eerie quiet was shattered every now and then by the creaking of the old house, a grim reminder of their isolation. As the minutes ticked by, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. It was like 1,000 unseen eyes were trained on them, tracking their every move. The background score crescendoed, its haunting melody a chilling backdrop to their predicament. The tension was palpable, a taut wire ready to snap. Their minds were filled with unanswered questions, each more terrifying than the last. What did the note mean? Who was watching them? And most importantly, were they safe? The silence of the night was a cruel mockery of their fear. Their hearts pounded in their chests, matching the eerie rhythm of the background score. The air was thick with fear, each breath a struggle. And then, just when they thought it couldn't get any worse, the unthinkable happened. And then the lights went out. Plunged into darkness, fear clawed its way into Jack and Eddie's hearts. The once familiar house was now an alien labyrinth, each corner a potential abyss of dread, each creak a harbinger of the unknown. Jack, the ex-military man, led the way. His hardened, calloused hands felt the walls, his senses heightened by the adrenaline coursing through his veins. His days in the service had trained him well, but this was a different kind of battlefield. The enemy was not a man, but a presence, a pervasive, all-consuming terror. Eddie, his lifelong friend, followed close behind. He was not a soldier, but he was brave in his own right. He trusted Jack implicitly, his faith in his friend the only thing keeping his fear at bay. Their breaths were shallow. Their hearts pounded like war drums in their chests. The air was thick with tension, their reality distorted by the pitch-black surroundings. The walls seemed to close in on them, the ceiling pressing down. The house was alive, its timber bones creaking under the weight of the fear. The soundtrack of the night was the echo of their footsteps, a staccato rhythm against the eerie silence. Each step was a leap of faith, each moment a dance with the unknown. The floorboards groaned under their weight, whispering secrets they wished they didn't have to hear. Suddenly, a chilling gust of wind cut through the silence. It was as if the house itself had exhaled, releasing a breath it had been holding for too long. The smell of decay filled their nostrils, a sickening reminder of the upstairs horror. Their hearts skipped a beat. They knew they were not alone. The house was not just their battlefield, it was their enemy. But they were resolute, their resolve hardened by the chilling experiences of the night. As they turned the corner, a shadowy figure lunged at them. To be continued. The chilling wind howled outside, ominously rattling the window panes of the old secluded house. This was not just a house, but a relic, a hushed whisper from the past, standing alone in the middle of nowhere. Its once vibrant paint was now faded and chipped, revealing the ravages of time. It was a structure that bore the weight of countless secrets, its aura steeped in an unsettling sense of dread. In this house, on this fateful night, two best friends, Amelia and Harper, were spending a weekend together, seeking an escape from the mundane routines of their lives. Amelia, a fiery redhead with a spirit to match, was an architect who found beauty in decay. She was drawn to the house's antiquity, its silent stories echoing through its creaky floorboards and dusty corners. Harper, on the other hand, was a literature professor with a penchant for the macabre. She was intrigued by the house's eerie charm, a perfect setting for one of the Gothic novels she so loved to dissect in her classes. As the night deepened, the house seemed to take on a life of its own. The shadows grew longer, the rooms colder. The echoes of their laughter faded into the heavy silence, swallowed by the house's cavernous interiors. The flickering fire in the hearth cast an eerie glow around the room, and the wind continued to moan, a mournful symphony of the night. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked away, each second punctuated by the resounding chime, a constant reminder of the creeping passage of time. The friends sat huddled together, the glow of their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. They were blissfully unaware of the house's disquieting ambiance, engrossed in their own world of shared stories and whispered secrets. Little did they know their sanctuary was about to become their prison, their retreat about to turn into their nightmare. In the echoing silence, the two friends were oblivious to the sinister events that were about to unfold. In the dimly lit room, the two friends, Julia and Lisa, began to share stories of their past. As they sat huddled together, the glow from the single lamp casting long shadows on their faces, an unlikely camaraderie was painted between the two. The first, Julia, was all sharp angles and thoughts, a forensic scientist with a keen sense for detail. Her analytical mind, trained to dissect the most intricate of crime scenes, had a peculiar knack for unraveling secrets. Her story was one of relentless pursuit of truth, of late nights spent under the harsh glare of laboratory lights, of mysteries unraveled thread by thread. Then there was Lisa, her best friend, a stark contrast and yet a perfect complement. Lisa was a former military officer, her skills honed on the battlefield. Her experiences were etched into her very being, shaping her into a living embodiment of resilience. She'd survived the harshest conditions, faced the most formidable opponents, and emerged victorious each time. Lisa's story was one of resilience and survival, of battles fought and won, of a spirit unbroken by the cruelties of war. Their stories intertwined, revealing a bond forged in the crucible of shared experiences and memories. They spoke of days spent together, of shared dreams and secrets, of the trust they had in each other. They spoke of their struggles and triumphs, their hopes and fears, their shared laughter and tears. Each word, each shared memory was a testament to their unshakable bond, a friendship that had withstood the test of time. As they reminisced, their laughter filled the room, a testament to their enduring bond. It was a warm, comforting sound that echoed in the stillness, a stark contrast to the eerie silence that lay outside. Their laughter filled the room, a stark contrast to the impending doom. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house, abruptly silencing their laughter. The jovial atmosphere that had once filled the room was now replaced with a heavy silence, the only sound being the pounding of their hearts. The friends exchanged worried glances, their eyes wide with anticipation.
"Did you hear that?"
one friend asked, her voice barely a whisper. She was a brave woman, an off-duty police officer who was always ready to face danger head-on. But even she couldn't mask the tremor in her voice. The other friend nodded, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of danger. She was a psychologist, adept at reading people and situations. But tonight she felt a cold shiver of fear that she couldn't quite analyze. With a mutual nod, they decided to investigate the noise. As they moved through the house, they noticed signs of a break-in. The back door was ajar, the lock broken. A cold gust of wind blew in through the open door, chilling them to the bone. They exchanged another glance, their fear now palpable. They weren't alone in the house. The tension escalated as they tried to figure out who the intruder was. Was it a random burglar or someone they knew? And more importantly, what did he want? Every creak of the old house, every shadow in the corners of their eyes heightened their fear. They moved with caution, their senses on high alert. The house, once a place of comfort and laughter, now felt like a labyrinth of dread. They reached for their phones only to realize that the network was down. Their isolation was complete. Now their only hope was to confront the intruder, to face the danger head-on. But as they turned a corner, they came face to face with an empty room. The intruder was nowhere to be seen, yet they could feel his presence, his eyes watching them from the shadows. They had no idea that their night of fun had just turned into a night of horror. With their hearts pounding in their chests, they tried to devise a plan. Bravery was not a choice but a necessity. Their survival depended on it. The two friends, bound by a history that had prepared them for this very moment, began to strategize. One of them, a seasoned rock climber, had a knack for understanding structures and spaces. She had always been fascinated by the geometry of the world around her. Her mind swiftly started to transform their familiar home into a complex labyrinth, a maze designed to confuse and bewilder the intruder. The other friend, a former high school sprinter, still held the record for the fastest 100 meters in their county. Her strength lay in her speed and agility. She knew she could outrun the intruder, if only she could find the right moment, the perfect opportunity. Their house, once a place of comfort and safety, had turned into an arena of fear and uncertainty. But they held on to each other, their friendship their beacon in this storm of terror. They navigated through the labyrinth, each narrow escape from the intruder making their hearts thump louder, the adrenaline fueling their determination. They hid in shadows, slipped through narrow spaces, and made daring leaps over obstacles. Each close encounter with the intruder was a chilling reminder of the danger they were in. Their breaths were sharp and quick, their senses heightened. The suspense hung in the air like a thick fog, the fear tangible. Yet they pressed on. They moved through the house, their house, with a newfound perspective. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind howling through the gaps, every shadow cast by the moonlight seeping in through the windows added to the eerie atmosphere. But they were not just victims, they were survivors, warriors in their own right. As they rounded a corner, they came to a chilling realization. Their labyrinth had led them to a dead end. They were trapped in their own house, and their only option was to fight back. Armed with courage and determination, they decided to confront the intruder. The night seemed to hold its breath as they moved silently, their hearts pounding a frantic rhythm in their chests. Their friendship had been forged in the fires of adversity, and now, in this chilling moment, it was their only weapon. They knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, a knowledge that had been etched into their souls through countless sleepovers, shared secrets, and whispered dreams. On one hand, we had the athlete, a track star who could outrun any adversary. Her agility and speed were her armor, her resilience, her sword. On the other, the scholar, a master of strategy and an ardent fan of mystery novels. She had an analytical mind that could decode the most intricate of puzzles. Invoking their strengths, they moved as one, the athlete leading the way with the scholar close behind, her mind racing to anticipate the intruder's next move. The confrontation was a dance, a deadly ballet of shadows and echoes. The intruder, an enigma wrapped in a riddle, was a formidable adversary. His identity remained shrouded in mystery, his face an unreadable mask. This unknown element only heightened the terror, making their hearts pound louder, their breaths come shorter. But they refused to back down. The athlete lunged, her agility a blur in the dim light. The scholar countered, her strategic mind predicting and parrying his moves. The room resonated with the sounds of the struggle, the creak of floorboards, the gasp of exertion, the whisper of fear. Every second was a battle, every minute a war. They fought with everything they had, their friendship, their shield, their determination, their weapon. The intruder was relentless, but so were they. 2 against 1, they pushed him back, cornering him. Just when they thought they had him cornered, the intruder vanished into the shadows. The room echoed with their ragged breaths. The silence a chilling reminder of the horror they had just faced. The confrontation was over, but the night was far from done. As the adrenaline began to fade, they realized that the nightmare was far from over. A chilling hush settled over them, punctured only by their ragged breaths echoing in the cold silence. In the midst of the chaos, they discovered something. A clue. Not just any clue, but one that twisted their stomachs into knots. A memento, familiar and unsettling, left behind by the intruder. It was not a random act. This intruder, this phantom menace, he knew them. He knew them personally. A shiver ran down their spines as the implication of this revelation hit them. Their home, their sanctuary, had been violated by someone from their past. The safety they once knew was shattered, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread. It was a terror that left them feeling naked, exposed. As the horrifying reality sank in, they heard a voice from the shadows. "See you soon, ladies."